Hi everyone and welcome to Zen's midweek astrology update. Today we have a very important celestial conversation perfecting itself, one that gives the overall tone to all of the year 2021, where the classic ruler of the sign of Aquarius, Saturn, meets in a conversation of tension with the modern ruling planet of the sign, Uranus. And also, this is one of the three meetings that is going to be taking place this year. One is today, the 17th of February. Another one is going to be taking place in the summer, around the 14th of June, if I'm not mistaken. And the final one is on the 24th of December 2021. You may have heard me or any other astrologer talk about this energy, especially the big picture, what it does for our long-term future. This is where Saturn represents the structures of our society and our everyday normality, and Uranus is the next, it is the new, the revolutionary. It is the future knocking at the door, giving us a glimpse of what awaits us in the close future, but also the more distant future. Especially with Mercury retrograde being conjunct Jupiter, as in our worldview, our life philosophy, our principles, our faith. So one way or another, this is a really good moment to try and figure out where fate is leading us, it is guiding us to, both individually and collectively. Of course, as I said earlier, this is the first of three meetings. So this time we might only get one side of this energy, one side of the truth, because regardless of how we look at this energy, well, it is definitely based on truth, especially truth in the most objective way possible, because that is the symbolism of Uranus. But also this is where Saturn can also represent the truth, because Saturn is down to earth, Saturn is all the material, physical possibilities. It is the limits, the rules and regulations, and of course the structures within our lives, our minds, our inner world. So everything that gives us a certain kind of stability, longevity. And when these two power players meet in tension, so they battle each other, their symbolism clash. Well, Uranus is the future, it is the new, it is the next. Saturn is the old, everything that we could rely upon, everything that was stable, everything that is fixed, rigid. And from both of these power players, without a doubt, Uranus is the stronger planet. So chances are that it will break down everything that Saturn symbolizes and basically force it to realign itself with a more modern, future-oriented version of its symbolism. And this is perfectly true collectively and individually as well. And what is also special about this conversation taking place today is that the moon is also conjunct Uranus. The moon representing our emotional worlds, how we feel, our emotional response individually, and it is the people, the power of the people, how people are feeling towards Saturn, as in the limitations, the restrictions, the legislation, the fairness of how matters which affect the whole of society are being governed, are being taken care of, handled. So this can be a very rebellious energy, and we are already seeing this play out on the world stage. It is all of the protests, and not just the physical ones where people go and take to the streets and demand justice, demand their voices to be heard, but also, for example, legal initiatives where people challenge the fairness of all the rules and regulations in a court of justice. It is also the political side, where different political visions, ideologies clash on the world stage. Aquarius social media, the internet, television. And since this energy perfects itself over the course of today, well, this week we're very likely to see, or better said here, certain news, disclosures, the truth about something reaching daylight, which might shock us, surprise us, or trigger us emotionally, especially about everything that has been happening in our lives collectively all throughout this period. So the COVID situation and all the political changes, the shifts of power are definitely part of this. And of course, as I said earlier, with Mercury retrograde being part of this picture, conjunct Jupiter, Jupiter is also the truth, but from a very subjective point of view. Jupiter is basically the inner truth. So we might be likely to receive some kind of follow-up information, the result of like an investigation, or a different take on certain things that have been taking place on the world stage not so long ago. But at the same time, this energy is also very constructive because that Uranus does bring solutions. It is very solution oriented actually, because the main goal is for us to be able to figure out all that we need to accomplish individually and in this case collectively even more, to advance, to make progress, to achieve a breakthrough. So even though there was a lot of controversy and contradictory discussions, even ideological battles on how to solve this coronavirus situation, and here I'm not talking about conspiracy theories, but like true scientific discussions, or for example comparing a certain kind of research to another, or one scientist or a group of scientists contesting another group's research or the truth behind it or the methodology, etc. And this is actually Jupiter in the picture, because every group, every individual projects their own beliefs and their own life views on anything in life, even a scientific empirical research. But it's not really the conflict or the clashes or the controversial nature of this which should be emphasized on, but rather that regardless of the ideology behind it, a lot of potential solutions have appeared already, and some of them do work. So there is a lot of hope, there is a lot of potential future solutions that can actually go right, take a really, really good turn, giving all of us tools on how to navigate through this world crisis, through this world change, with greater efficiency, and Uranus with greater speed and haste. Also, Uranus and the sign of Aquarius is also technology. So for the scientific world, this energy is actually very beneficial, because the biggest breakthroughs, the biggest inventions, the biggest visions about the future of science, and not just the future of science, I would actually go as far as stating that this might be the quantum leap where we as a collective embrace the higher octaves of our understanding about the universe, how it works, laws of physics. This is where everything in our lives is going to be a little bit more quantum, and in a very literal sense, not just symbolically. So I would suggest all of us to pay close attention to what is being revealed, communicated in the scientific area, the technological area, because ideas or certain theories, visions, and also inventions, where everything is still in the alpha stage, whatever pops up around this time, well, that thing can become reality in a very life-changing way until the very end of the year. And the opposite is also true. Certain things which were the custom, the tradition, which used to offer us a certain kind of structure, even from a scientific perspective, well, those things might just suddenly lose their importance, lose their value. For example, like scientific value, a formula that has always been applied to calculate a certain equation, for example. So a lot of things can change very, very quickly. Another nuance of this energy is without a doubt about money, values, currencies, banking systems, the world economy. Uranus goes through the earth sign of Taurus, which rules all of these aspects of our lives, and Saturn in the sign of Aquarius is exactly responsible for its stability, groundedness, fairness, equality, etc. So this energy can also trigger unexpected, spontaneous, instant economic changes. For example, total chaos in the stock market, in cryptocurrencies. New currencies, especially electronic ones, can appear overnight. It can also play out as new approaches to how to make, for example, social welfare much more equitable, much more equal, so that it can benefit more people. For example, Aquarius is also very humanitarian type of energy. And naturally, it also has a powerful psychological nuance to it. Something that was always valuable, high-priced, worthy of our time, our efforts, our sacrifices, regardless if that is money, our physical energy, our intellectual energy. It can all of a sudden lose all value, and the new, instantly takes its place. Because value has a lot to do with how we feel about it, towards it, and of course the correlation between our self-esteem, what we are willing to sacrifice, and what no longer is worthy of our sacrifice, or at least not in the measure of how it always used to be. Now, from an individual perspective, this energy, of course, depends very much on where Aquarius, 7 degrees of Aquarius and 7 degrees of Taurus is placed in your personal chart. Because the surprises, the emotions, the uprising of feelings may come from that area of your life. And even though this really intense square can have certain physical effects regardless of where these placements are in your chart, for example, an amplified state of nervousness, a little bit of anxiety, feeling extremely restless, being extremely focused and concentrated on your future plans, how to accomplish certain matters, how to overcome limitations, trying your hardest to achieve a breakthrough, or at least to gather relevant information and clarity about what it is that you have to do next. The sign of Aquarius has also a lot to do with our interhuman connections, especially our friends, our acquaintances, those people who are basically part of our lives. So chances are information, any kind of truth, greater clarity may enter our lives over the course of this week, which can change the way we feel. And even though the clash of Uranus and Saturn is not a comfortable energy at all, because it just rips us out of our comfort zones, yet still, as I said earlier, it is a really good energy to work with the truth. For example, who it is that we can trust, we can rely upon, who it is that no longer resonates with who we are and the changes we have enabled in our lives. What is worthy of our time, Saturn, of our effort and sacrifices, and what isn't anymore. And naturally, trying to figure out what this new normality means for us personally. So any information, even if it's shocking, even if it's uncomfortable, in this sense can help us greatly to align ourselves of what is and isn't possible for us in the future. That's Saturn, the limitations. For example, if we have like big future plans which have been well established maybe just a couple of years ago, well, this energy can tell us what it is that we need to wait with or be more patient with, take things slower and more methodically, more meticulously. Like for example, if we plan to make a big investment this year, we have to wait until the markets or any kind of financial aspect, globally speaking, stabilizes. And of course, what it is that we need to take immediate action with. That Uranus is spontaneous action. It is also the energy of epiphany, the light bulb moment, the eureka moment. But it's not enough, especially under this sky, to think it. We also have to take certain kind of actions in order to start off the process. Aquarius is also a dual sign, where those waves representing the glyph of Aquarius, one of them can mean thoughts woven together with emotions, which basically create our way of thinking and mindset. As human beings, we cannot always be 100% logical and rational, even if we really try to. A part of it is always going to be subjective. It is always going to be susceptible to emotions, feelings, the past, how the past events made us feel, what we feel towards the future. But it's also a fixed air sign. So it means that certain feelings, even certain thought patterns, way of thinking are specific and individual to who it is that we are, and we can't really change that. But that doesn't mean that we cannot readapt anything else in our lives to resonate in a much greater degree with who it is that our uniqueness and individuality. So this energy is really, really good for that. It gives us the chance to readapt, to recalibrate ourselves, but it's uncomfortable regardless of how we look at it. Both Taurus and Aquarius are fixed signs, so change doesn't come easily, even if the material expression of that change enters instantly in our lives like an earthquake, like a shock, like a lightning bolt, that Uranus. Still, we psychologically and mentally have to integrate it, and that takes a little bit of time. That cannot be instant for everyone. Maybe if you have very strong mutable energy in your chart, Gemini, Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, maybe it is much more easier to reconfigure yourself, to live with the changes. But if you have like very strong fixed energy, it will take a little bit of time until you process it, until you get used to it, and until you can adapt all your future goals and plans, where maybe certain things that used to give you security, a sense of groundedness, are no longer available. So you have to rethink everything, and for that Mercury retrograde is really, really good with that Jupiter, because even if it seems hard, even if it seems slow, if we believe in ourselves, and if our thoughts and our way of thinking are governed by belief, faith, optimism, hope, well, that makes it that much easier. Even if this energy makes you anxious, it makes you overthink, it makes you split the hair in four, just remember the opposite sign of Aquarius is Leo. That is heart-centered energy, that is love, that is pure, fiery emotion and passion. So basically, if you feel overwhelmed mentally, if there is way too much, for example, to figure out, or truth comes in waves which seem a little bit overwhelming, just remember that you can always shift onto living from your heart space. Whenever the future seems a little bit confusing and stressful, we can just take a moment to chill out, so to speak, and ask ourselves, what is the wisdom of the present moment, of the eternal present at which we are living right now? What are we thinking about? What are we feeling? And if those feelings are not anchored in the present, we can shift them consciously with a little bit of self-discipline, or there's so very many techniques which can help us achieve exactly this, to ground ourselves in the present. For example, breathing techniques, breathing exercises, or physical activities, physical exercises, hikes, walks, etc. Also, spending time with a person or maybe an animal companion who you love deeply is also very nurturing and very grounding. If you have children, then playing with your children or going out and spending time with them is a really good way to just reactivate your heart energy. Or if you have an animal companion, a pet, animals and their energy can be such a really powerful, positive influence in our lives. Just to look in their eyes, a gesture of affection, a stroke or anything can simply ground us instantly. Or if your local weather conditions permit, just go out and take a walk in nature. Touch a tree or go barefoot on the grass. Visit the river or the seaside, a forest. All of these activities can do true miracles. Because even if we are not consciously aware of it, they do feed us with a certain kind of energy that helps us regenerate and just keeps us anchored and grounded in the present moment in life. And I do believe that due to another celestial conversation taking place at the same time, where Venus squares Mars, and Venus is also the ruling planet of Taurus, the sign which Mars transits, combined with the Saturn and Uranus square, well, this can be an excessive motivation to get what we want, to go after our desires. This can also be an energy of really powerful attractions, sparks, even obsessions. And while there's absolutely nothing wrong with this, if we are able to use it in a very disciplined manner, not to go over the limits, not to abandon rationality and clear thought, and just totally surrender to emotion and instinct. So if we are able to keep the balance, this is a really good motivational energy for us to invest that extra effort, extra time, extra energy and focus into achieving whatever that is the most important for our futures, Aquarius. Or whatever it is that attracts us, fascinates us, and also triggers those happiness hormones that our brains can produce. Aquarius is really powerful mental energy. So sometimes happiness is all in the mind and in the brain. And yet another energy, which is not as strong yet, it is the trine, a conversation of harmony between Mars and Pluto. Now this is basically the sheer force of will, the sheer power of ambition, going after whatever it is that you desire in every way possible. This is where a very strong psychological motivation, being focused singularly on your desires, whatever it is that you want or need to accomplish, that Pluto in Capricorn can represent where your power is truly concentrated at. And Mars, especially in Taurus, well, it is physical action, what we do practically in order to get where we need to be. And this is where, since it's an aspect of supreme harmony, what we believe, what we focus on, what we want to achieve through our psychological fortitude, well, that basically consecrates all of our actions and makes them that more susceptible to success, to actually doing what they're intended to accomplish. And also physical well-being, for example, prosperity, the promise of greater comfort, greater freedom, is capable to motivate us in a very, very intense way. But with Pluto in Capricorn, it is advised for us to be patient, to embody the virtue of patience, and do things the right way, as in not quick fixes, not sudden and spontaneous improvisations, which are just temporary solutions. But this energy asks us to go for the permanent, long-term solution and just work for it and direct all of our energy, focus, drive to that purpose. So this is definitely a celestial blessing. This is where moments of courage, moments of standing up for yourself and what you believe in, moments when you take inspired action can actually pay off handsomely in so very many different ways. But still, we have that Venus and Mars square, so we also have to be very rational and not go over the limit. And of course, not to act out of desperation, especially desperation of just how much we desire a person, a situation, a result, success, accomplishing something, etc. And also, tomorrow the sun enters into the sign of Pisces, and this is also a really powerful energy shift because the sign of Pisces rules everything in our lives that are under a shroud of mystery. It also rules our unconscious, it rules our karmic history, it rules the distant past, it also rules our immune system and certain chemical balances in our bodies. So this is going to be a really good period for decluttering our lives, detoxifying our lives, not just physically but also socially, karmically, spiritually, psychologically. So everything that is not serving our greatest good can be released much more easily in a Pisces season, for example. We tend to be much more honest, much more understanding, much more empathic with ourselves. So forgiveness, for example, forgiveness for the self or another person, letting go and releasing the past is also emphasized upon. So all these things are done with greater ease. And naturally, Pisces is one of the most spiritual signs out there. So this is like divine guidance. This is like our higher selves, our superior divine intelligence, influencing our lives with much greater intensity than usually. And this does mean a lot of divine help, a lot of divine guidance, exactly there which we might find ourselves to be weaker, to be more inefficient. For example, we may lack experience, we may lack that inner motivation, we may lack any kind of, for example, help from others or a sense of security. That is where our belief, spirituality, or karma, the divine, can compensate everything that we lack. And also Pisces season is that moment of the year when all of us feel much more inclined to go deep within ourselves and find answers, solutions, and everything there. It is a period of the year when solitude, time spent with ourselves, inner exploration, takes its most positive expression, where it brings us joy, it brings us a sense of calm, peace, and harmony, and not solitude in the more negative sense of the word, where it can be loneliness and just feeling abandoned or not having anyone to share our thoughts and feeling with our lives. Where the sun in Aquarius up until this moment was the exact opposite of this energy. This is where we had to socialize, we had to connect, we had to communicate, and also very many things in this period depended on other people, regardless if that is a person, for example, a good friend of yours, or if that is maybe just a representative of a certain kind of group, authority, organization, for example, the person who serves you at the bank. So with the sun entering in the sign of Aquarius and all throughout its transit, it highlights that area of our lives where we just, like it or not, we have to connect with other people and emphasize and work with those connections. But now, starting from tomorrow, this energy shifts, it becomes much calmer, it becomes much more inward oriented. And also, if it has to do with other people in our lives, well, those connections are usually strong emotional connections, a history we might have together, or they can also be karmic connections, karmic relationships. They can even come from previous existences. And the good part of this energy is that it does add a very soothing and calming effect to this very powerful Uranus-Saturn square, which I said is extremely rebellious. So we tend to rise up against everything, everyone, even our own inner limitations. But when we have this influence, this tendency to go within ourselves at the same time, this really tempers the rebellious nature of this energy. When the way we feel about certain things, when our inner happiness, the well-being of our souls matters a lot to us, well then calming down and not taking radical action or anything that we might regret later on is that much more easier to accomplish. And another side of this energy is that with the sun, the light of our consciousness in the sign of Pisces, we are that much more in tune with our intuition, with our inner world, with the presence of the divine in our lives. And that also adds a really soothing and calming effect to this highly rebellious energy. But of course, for some people, the sun in Pisces can also be a revelation of long-term secrets, things that were hidden from your sight being suddenly revealed, coming to daylight. So the shocking part of this energy is still there. Well, this concludes today's recording. I do hope that you enjoyed it and you found it useful. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, bye for now.